The quarterly community meeting had the highest attendance in Oak Ridge Estates history. Karen sat in the back row, no longer at the head table, watching as Dr. Chen calmly explained the new digital community platform to the captivated audience. The system allows transparent voting on community decisions, streamlined maintenance requests, and secure communications, all without compromising anyone's personal data, he explained, clicking through his presentation. Karen had to admit, reluctantly, that it was impressive. The platform addressed many frustrations she'd faced as chairperson: the endless paper notices that people claimed never to receive, the difficulty organizing responses, the lack of accountability. What about enforcement? She found herself asking aloud. The room quieted as heads turned toward her. Standards don't matter if they're not enforced. Chen nodded, unsurprised by her question. Good point. The platform includes a mediation system. Neighbors can flag potential issues, but instead of immediate fines or violations, it opens a conversation. Most minor disputes resolve themselves when people communicate directly. That will never work, Karen scoffed. People need structure and consequences. Melissa stood up. Actually, we've been beta testing it for 3 weeks. Compliance is up 40% compared to the old system. Karen blinked in surprise. 40%. Turns out people respond better when approached as neighbors rather than rule breakers, Walter added. And the digital architecture Dr. Chen designed ensures that everyone receives and acknowledges communications. No more "I never got the notice" excuses. It was everything Karen had wanted to achieve, but through cooperation rather than control. After the meeting, she lingered, watching community members excitedly discussing neighborhood improvement projects. No one was approaching her, a stark contrast to previous meetings when people had crowded around with complaints and exemption requests. Quite different, isn't it? Chen appeared beside her, offering a cup of coffee. This time Karen accepted it. You've turned them against me. I haven't done anything except create infrastructure for what was already happening. The community was ready for change. They threw away 7 years of my work in 2 weeks, she said, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. Chen considered her thoughtfully. Not exactly. Look around. The community garden you established is thriving. The playground equipment you fundraised for is still used daily. Your work had value, Mrs. Worthington. Your approach was the problem, not your goals. Karen watched as Melissa coordinated volunteers for a neighborhood beautification project. One Karen had proposed years ago, but could never gather support for. They wouldn't listen to me, she said quietly. Because they felt controlled, not included, Chen replied. You have organizational skills this community needs. You just need to collaborate rather than command. For the first time, Karen wondered if she had missed something fundamental about leadership. She'd always believed structure came from authority, but watching the enthusiastic volunteers, she saw a different kind of order emerging, one built on shared purpose rather than fear of penalties. I don't know how to do that, she admitted. Chen smiled slightly. Interestingly enough, it's not unlike cybersecurity. The systems that work best aren't the most controlling. They're the most responsive. Karen found herself considering a new possibility, that her talents could be repurposed rather than rejected. 3 hours later, Karen sat rigidly in the Oak Ridge Estates Community Center, her fingers drumming an agitated rhythm on the conference table. Around her, the other 6 HOA board members exchanged nervous glances. The emergency meeting she'd called wasn't going as planned. Let me understand this, said Walter from accounting, pinching the bridge of his nose. You authorized the installation of a Wi-Fi tower on Dr. Chen's roof without his specific consent, and now we're facing potential legal action. The notices were sent. Karen insisted, though her voice lacked its usual certainty. And regardless, the bylaws give us the authority. Melissa, the newest board member, cleared her throat. I've been reviewing the bylaws, and while we do have easement rights, they require written notification with a minimum 30-day response period for homeowners to file objections. Karen's eyes narrowed. Whose side are you on? The side that doesn't want our HOA fees to double because of a lawsuit, Melissa replied evenly. The door swung open and Raj, the HOA attorney, entered looking uncharacteristically flustered. He dropped a thick folder on the table. "We have a problem," he announced. Dr. Chen has filed for an emergency injunction. His attorney submitted evidence that no notice was delivered to his address. More concerning, he submitted documentation proving that the Wi-Fi system you're installing violates 3 federal communications regulations and potentially constitutes a security breach. Karen waved dismissively. "He's trying to scare us." "Karen," Rav said carefully. "I looked him up. Dr. Marcus Chen isn't just any government employee. He's a senior technical director at the NSA's Cybersecurity Directorate. He literally writes national policy on telecommunications security." The room fell silent. "So we'll move the tower," Karen conceded reluctantly. "Put it on the Johnson's roof instead." Walter groaned. The installation already damaged his chimney. Who approved this vendor anyway? All eyes turned to Karen, who felt her control slipping. TechConnect Solutions offered the best price. "Because they're not properly licensed," Rav said, flipping through papers. Chen's lawyer included their business records. Their principal owner has been cited for code violations in 3 counties. Karen's phone chimed with an email notification, then another, and another. "What now?" she muttered, opening her inbox. Subject: HOA Wi-Fi project security concerns. Subject: removal of Karen Worthington as HOA chair. Subject: emergency community meeting request. The emails were flooding in from homeowners throughout Oak Ridge Estates. Somehow, word had spread about the morning's confrontation, complete with details of the questionable contractor and Karen's dismissal of proper procedures. "How did everyone find out so quickly?" she demanded. Melissa glanced at her tablet. "It's on the community Facebook page. Someone posted a video." "What video?" Karen grabbed the tablet, and there it was, crystal clear footage of her ordering technicians to continue working on Chen's roof, even after he'd asked them to leave. The comments section was exploding. As Karen watched in horror, her phone began ringing. "Unknown number." "Mrs. Worthington?" came a crisp, professional voice when she answered. "This is Elaine Martinez from Channel 7 News. We'd like your comment on the developing HOA controversy in Oak Ridge Estates." 6 months later, Karen adjusted her name badge in the convention center mirror. Karen Worthington, Community Systems Consultant. The irony wasn't lost on her. The rooftop confrontation that had ended her HOA reign had inadvertently launched a new career. After that community meeting, she'd reluctantly joined the Digital Platform Committee, intending to ensure standards weren't completely abandoned. Instead, she'd discovered an aptitude for systematizing community feedback that even Chen had found valuable. "Ready for your session?" Dr. Chen appeared in the mirror behind her, now a colleague rather than adversary. His recommendation had secured her a speaking slot at the Regional Community Governance Conference. 23 HOA boards registered, she replied, checking her presentation notes one last time. "Apparently people are interested in how Oak Ridge Estates reduce complaints by 60% while increasing property values. People are interested in not being the villain in their own neighborhood," Chen corrected with a slight smile. "Your perspective on this is unique." Karen's presentation, from enforcement to engagement, rebuilding community trust, had been months in the making. It required something that hadn't come naturally to her: vulnerability. As she took the podium and faced the room of HOA board members, people exactly like she had been, Karen began not with statistics or regulations, but with a story. 6 months ago, I stood on a homeowner's roof, installing a Wi-Fi tower without proper consent, convinced I was acting in my community's best interest, she said. That homeowner happened to be an NSA cybersecurity expert who taught me that real security isn't built on control. It's built on trust. The audience chuckled, recognizing their own well-intentioned overreach in her story. Karen continued, "I had confused compliance with community. I thought my job was to catch violations, not build connections. That mistake cost me my position, but gave me something more valuable: perspective." As she detailed the transformation of Oak Ridge Estates from a punitive enforcement model to a collaborative governance system, Karen watched recognition dawn on the faces before her. These were people who had taken thankless volunteer positions because they cared about their communities, only to find themselves cast as neighborhood tyrants. The technology matters, she explained, demonstrating the platform Chen had designed. But what matters more is the mindset. Are you looking for violations or opportunities? Are you imposing standards or inviting stewardship? After her presentation, 8 HOA board members crowded around with questions, not about enforcing rules, but about rebuilding fractured community relationships. Later, as she and Chen packed up their materials, a woman approached, another HOA chair with a familiar rigid posture and binder full of violations. Your system sounds ideal for functional neighborhoods, the woman said skeptically, but my community has serious compliance issues. Some people just won't follow rules without consequences. 6 months ago, Karen would have agreed completely. Now she recognized her former self in this woman's frustrated certainty. What if the resistance isn't to the standards themselves, but to how they're implemented? Karen suggested. Communities thrive on belonging, not obedience. The woman seemed unconvinced, but took Karen's card. As they left the convention center, Chen glanced at Karen. You know, she reminds me of someone. Karen smiled ruefully. I know. Poor thing has no idea what she's about to learn. Some lessons are harder than others, Chen agreed. But I'm curious. Do you miss it? The authority, the control? Karen considered the question as they walked toward the parking lot. The truth was both simpler and more complex than she'd expected. I missed the certainty, she admitted. Believing I was always right made decisions easier. But what we've built at Oak Ridge is stronger than what I enforced alone. Chen nodded thoughtfully. The best security systems adapt rather than just restrict. Speaking of which, Karen said, the community has voted on the new Wi-Fi system location. The tower installation begins next week. Where did they decide to put it? Karen smiled. The community center roof, with proper permits, licensed contractors, and transparent oversight. No shortcuts this time? No shortcuts. Karen agreed, just community. As they reached their cars, Karen's phone buzzed with a text message from that same skeptical HOA chair. Maybe we could discuss your system further, having some issues I can't solve the usual way. Another Karen, ready for transformation, the cycle continuing. Some towers, Karen had learned, were worth climbing down from. Karen Worthington's triumphant smile froze on her face as she watched the man climb through his second-story window, his movements surprisingly agile for someone who had just discovered strangers on his roof. She clutched her HOA binder tighter against her chest, the laminated Oak Ridge Estates Community Standards title gleaming in the morning sun. Who authorized you to be on my property? The homeowner's voice cut through the air like a steel blade. He wasn't yelling, which somehow made it worse. Karen cleared her throat, straightening the collar of her pristine peach blazer. As chairperson of the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association, I don't need authorization. I'm simply overseeing the installation of our new community Wi-Fi enhancement system. The man, Dr. Marcus Chen, according to her records, stood perfectly still, his eyes moving methodically from Karen to the 3 technicians awkwardly balanced on his roof tiles, to the partially installed metal tower now protruding from his chimney. Get off my roof. Now. His voice remained eerily calm. Karen's eye twitched. This wasn't how these confrontations usually went. By now, homeowners typically withered under her authority, stammering apologies for questioning her judgment. She flipped open her binder. Section 7, Paragraph C clearly states that the HOA retains easement rights for utilities and community enhancements. The board voted unanimously last month. Notices were sent. I never received any notice. Well, you were supposed to. Karen sniffed. The tower location was selected by our technical consultant as the optimal position for maximum neighborhood coverage. One of the technicians, a gangly young man with a tool belt, tentatively raised his hand. Ma'am, maybe we should continue working, Karen ordered, silencing him with a glare. Dr. Chen pulled out his phone. I'm giving you exactly 60 seconds to remove yourselves and your equipment from my property. before I call the police and press charges for trespassing and property damage. Karen laughed, a short, dismissive sound. Oh, please. The HOA bylaws supersede your objections. You signed them when you purchased this home. She turned to the workers. Finished the installation. Marcus Chen's expression shifted imperceptibly. Karen, is it? I work in cybersecurity for the NSA. That means two things. First, I understand privacy and security better than most people alive. Second, I have the patience and resources to dismantle whatever you're trying to build here. Karen rolled her eyes. Everyone has some fancy job they think makes them special. The tower stays. 50 seconds. This is for the community's benefit. 40 seconds. The youngest technician started packing up his tools. What are you doing? Karen hissed. Lady, I don't get paid enough to go to jail, he muttered. Karen's face flushed crimson. In 7 years as HOA chair, no one had ever defied her like this. She'd transformed Oak Ridge Estates from a chaotic assortment of individualistic eyesores into a model of uniformity and order. She wasn't about to let some government employee undermine her authority. 30 seconds, Chen said, typing something into his phone. Karen made her decision, her first mistake of many. Keep working, she commanded the remaining technicians. He's bluffing. Karen sat alone in her home office, staring at her laptop screen. 2 weeks had passed since the rooftop incident, and her carefully ordered world had imploded spectacularly. The emergency community meeting had been a bloodbath. Neighbors she'd reprimanded for everything from mailbox colors to unauthorized bird feeders had lined up to share their grievances. The board had voted 6-1 to remove her as chairperson. But Karen Worthington didn't surrender easily. They'll see what happens when no one's maintaining standards, she muttered, finalizing her new strategy. She'd created an anonymous email account --concerned Oak Ridge resident at mail.com, spent days compiling violations for every board member who had betrayed her. Walter's unapproved garden shed, Melissa's fence that exceeded height regulations by half an inch, all meticulously documented with timestamps and photographs. She clicked send on the mass email to the remaining board members and the entire neighborhood directory. Let them tear each other apart with hypocrisy. Karen smiled, imagining the chaos this would create. Her phone buzzed with a text notification. Unknown number. Interesting choice, using the public library's Wi-Fi for your anonymous emails. Not very anonymous. Karen froze. How could anyone know? She'd been careful, driving 20 minutes to use the library computers. Another text arrived. Unknown number. The board's personal information shouldn't be used for harassment. I'd reconsider this path. Her fingers trembled as she typed. Who is this? The response came immediately. Someone who understands digital footprints better than you do. Chen. It had to be him. Karen's face burned with indignation. She slammed her laptop closed and grabbed her car keys. This had gone far enough. She would confront him directly. 20 minutes later, she marched up to his front door, rehearsing her speech about intimidation and privacy violations. The door opened before she could knock. Mrs. Worthington, Dr. Chen said, unsurprised. I was expecting you. Are you stalking me? She demanded, pushing past him into his living room. No more than you're stalking the board members, he replied calmly, closing the door. Coffee. The serene offer caught her off guard. What? No, I want to know how you're monitoring my communications. Chen gestured toward his couch. I'm not monitoring your personal communications, but when someone uses public resources to organize harassment campaigns, it creates certain digital signatures. That's invasion of privacy. Actually, it's not. Public library computers aren't private, and the mass email you sent created enough neighborhood complaints that I was asked to look into it. Karen's certainty faltered. Asked by whom? The new board. They've hired me as a security consultant to help implement a proper communications infrastructure for the neighborhood. The betrayal stung worse than she'd anticipated. They can't do that without a full community vote. There was one, Chen said, handing her a tablet displaying the results of an online poll she hadn't seen. Digital voting. Turnout was 87%, far better than the usual meeting attendance. Karen stared at the results, noticing her own address missing from the participant list. I wasn't informed. The notification went to your email, the same one receiving those news interview requests you've been ignoring. Perhaps you should check your spam folder. Karen's shoulders slumped slightly, her first sign of vulnerability. This neighborhood was chaos before I took over. The property values were stagnant. No one followed any standards. Chen studied her with unexpected empathy. Order isn't a bad goal, Mrs. Worthington, but your methods created resentment, not community. For the first time, Karen considered that her crusade for perfection might have alienated the very community she thought she was protecting.